with most people, you can say Lonnie and they'd be referring to me, but in my family, like I'm just another Lonnie. I'm one of like a handful.
Exactly. Okay, Blake, we're starting now. Ready? 1, 2, 3. So a lot of times when we have guests on, it's because we visited their stores. And that's partially true today. But we've also had a lot of meetings at NACS this week. And there was one line that really grabbed my attention that I thought was worthy of talking more. And it was that convenience stores are making much more of a cultural impact in communities than any other channel. So joining us for our discussion today, Lonnie McQuirter, who said that line in a meeting earlier this week. He's with 36 Lyn Refuel Station out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. And, the reference last week we talked about the number of recent news stories about great food and about convenience stores being a hangout. And this is kind of a continuation of that. Just your comment that convenience stores have a role in society that their competition doesn't. That whether it's drugstores, whether it's dollar stores, whether it's grocery, whether it's QSRs, that they sit somewhere where they have the opportunity to have more daily conversations, not just in the stores, but about the stores. And I'll let you start out by just explaining what you meant by the line that we are making much more of a cultural impact. And then I have a couple areas I want to explore within that.
Well, thank you for having me on, Jeff. It's an absolute honor to be on one of the best podcasts around and to be involved with such a great, innovative industry. Looking at the modern convenience store, whether we're talking about domestically in the United States, or I've also had the great honor of looking at some in parts of Asia this year, as well as Europe, they look a lot different than they used to, right? Mm-hmm. I've been in the business only 20 years, and I've seen huge drastic changes in our offering from covering the basic essentials of people's day-to-day lives toward hitting a little bit higher tier, where people are very proud to support their local convenience store and wear their branding and sometimes tattoo the logo on their body.
Right. Exactly. Yes. Because you don't see, I'm not going to say the name of brands. It's not fair to them, but you don't see major drugstore tattoos on a whole lot of people.
No, but on social media, you see lines out the door of people waiting in line, excited to get a convenience store tattooed on their body. This is a very permanent thing, at least for most of us, is, nothing more permanent than a tattoo, right?
Yes. And we're not talking, yes, there's Buc-ee's and there's Wawa in stories like that, but there's also Lou Perini's a couple of years ago in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And he was doing one store operator, and then actually he had two at the time.
That's right.
But offering tattoos, and people are like, I'm good with that. Sure.
It's symbolic of a number of things. It's not just of a great place where you get snacks at, but it's really what it means to that community. Mm-hmm. I had the great opportunity, as did you, of seeing Kenosha, Wisconsin, and realize that one of the shining gems in that town actually was the convenience stores there.
Yeah.
I mean, they were shaken by unrest, much like Minneapolis, but, to see how the employees treated him and how he engaged, as well as the community, how well they accepted each other, and it was a safe place for a number of people. Mm-hmm. I definitely understand why people would want that tattooed on their body.
And sticking with that just a little bit more, that Lou Perini's. We were visiting a store a couple of years ago. We were around a bit into the afternoon, and kids started to come in from school, starting at 1:30, something like that. And when I grew up, it's like, this is not a library. Get out of here, because you're reading magazines. Now, there aren't many magazines in convenience stores now, but they knew every kid that walked in. They asked about how were their classes, how were their grades. And when I talk, like I said, the idea of the neighborhood hangout that I talked about with Potbelly and Racetrack, that's an example on a high level. This is an example on a micro level, if you will, that there's these stories that people have every day about what a convenience store means in terms of a connection.
Absolutely. And we live at a time now where in some ways it gets divisive depending on what you're following and what topics are going on. And again, there's a real need and a lot of consideration about what we're doing for the next generation and for the youth out there. And there's this cheesy, pithy line saying it takes a village to raise a family. At Lou Perini's then, I mean, you could definitely tell that the convenience store, it serves its purpose in some ways. It's also helping build up that next generation, give them confidence, being that safe place from the go-to after school, as well as that welcoming, loving nature that we want not just Kenosha, Wisconsin look like.
Right.
Not just DC area, not just Minneapolis. We want every place to look like that. And that's one of those subtle impacts there that, again, for those of us that may want to just be dismissive and saying, I just work at a convenience store. Mm-hmm. There's always something else we can do there. And don't sell yourself short. There's much greater impacts you're making, positively or negatively, depending on your attitude and your disposition. But I think much more to the positive.
So you said cultural impact. Like I said, that resonated with me. We talked about the cultural impact, how convenience stores fit into communities. Let's talk about the pop cultural impact. And Lonnie's
I'm ready for this. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Hopefully I'm not going to sound too outdated.
I was born for this. Yeah.
Something decades ago. But there's been a couple of things the last year. You raised it the other day in the meeting. A couple high-profile concerts at gas stations. It started, I think, 2.5 years ago. Bad Bunny couldn't be a bigger pop star, music star. Played on top of a roof at a gas station in Puerto Rico on New Year's Eve. Then we went to your 20th anniversary celebration, June 9th, I believe, June 8th, I think that was the date.
That's right.
And you had a band. You had two bands, multiple bands. Closed the pumps. You jokingly set the gas price at $6.09, which was the date, not the price, because you weren't selling gallons, because there's a band on your forecourt. And it's just one of those things. It was a party. But like when you bring a band, you had a rapper there, you had a full on band with brass. They were both amazing.
Absolutely.
But, talk about that. And then there's also Sheets does something like that. But that's
All-American Rejects, right?
Yeah, that's what captures the zeitgeist, if you will. It's like people love those kind of things. And it jumps on social.
Some of it's the novelty of it, right? I mean, I think when we first started doing our concerts, this was about 12, 15 years ago. And again, we also would put bands in the roof, and now it was tough getting an insurance policy. You can imagine these days how tough that is. So had them on the ground this time, in the future, possibly back on the roof. But, people are creatures of habit, and a little bit of herd mentality in convenience stores too. Sometimes you'll see them packed full, busy, can't find an open pump to get to. And other times you can almost see the tumbleweeds blowing past the convenience store. Mm-hmm. But again, we're creatures of habit. We have our expectations there. And the last thing you expect on a Sunday morning is to hear blaring music coming from the local convenience store that you typically go to for your coffee, for your kombucha, for your other beverages, and for your party needs and ice. And yet you see a band there, and people are welcoming you with open arms to come enjoy a party that's celebrating 20 years. Who does that?
Right. And a 10-piece band, I think it was 10 pieces, doing these amazing covers of people like Stevie Wonder. And all. It sounded fantastic. And that's a busy intersection. You're driving by, and I mean, the question has to be, what's a band doing instead of selling gas?
Absolutely.
And you had mentioned in the meeting the other day, you talked about Sheets and the All-American Rejects. I'll let you tell that story, what Sheets was doing.
I mean, Sheets did an amazing job of gathering people there and as well helping not just the customers have a fun time, but help them appreciate that Sheets is more than just a for-profit entity. It's more than just a family company. They care about their employees. They care about the community. Mm-hmm. And working for Sheets, I'm not an employee of Sheets, but working for Sheets, it gives you a sense of pride there when stuff like that happens. Yeah. Any company you're involved with, the people there, lately there's been, quick aside, there's been this kind of toxicity I've seen online of saying your boss is not your friend, your coworkers aren't your friend. You work at the wrong place, because my coworkers, and that's really the way I look at it. My coworkers, I enjoy speaking with them, enjoy hanging out with them. I enjoy working with them in the good times, the challenging times, and also when we're celebrating our anniversary for the decades and the countless individuals that have sacrificed to make 36 Lyn what it is today.
So hold that thought. I want to talk more about your people, but going back to what Sheets did with this band, it's a band called 36, not 36 Lyn, it's called All American Rejects. And so what they've done is they've done various pop-ups that the band during the course of the summer. And apparently Sheets must have contacted them, or I don't know what happened. I have a daughter who happens to live in Pittsburgh, and she said this event took place in Pittsburgh. She said the town just loved it. And it was all surprise. They just get on the mailing list and then they'll text you, and this happened. And they had 2,000 people there right in front of the entrance. They had special T-shirts that had the set list, and they didn't play a 3-hour show. They played 6 songs, 5 songs, something like that.
Sweet.
But you could buy, or they gave you a T-shirt that looked like a Sheets receipt, except it had the set list. So really, really well thought out. And so another example. There's this band called the Baseball Project, and it's short version. It's a band that does songs only about baseball, and it's obscure things about baseball. So Google them. Doc Ellis is known for pitching a no-hitter on acid. That story's too mainstream for them. They found a more interesting story about Doc Ellis. But half of the band, half of them is members of REM. So these are people that had a very comfortable career, and now they're doing a 20-gig tour, and they're driving around. And the other day they posted from Love's, and they posted clothing they bought from Love's. They posted drinks, just whatever it is. So we reached out to them and said, if you really like gas station and truck stop swag, we know people. So that kind of leads to another thought. Is like anybody who's famous, whether you're in music or whether you're in sports, you started out riding a bus or riding a van, and you probably, even though it might not have been totally fun at the time, you probably have positive memories. And so I think there's a real opportunity for us to, as an industry, if people have ideas about pop-up shows or having, before a musician plays 9:00 at night at a bigger place, can you do a 3-song acoustic pop-up? I mean, what are the possibilities? And I think there can be a lot of fun here because, as you said, Lonnie, the cultural impact we have / pop cultural impact we have, I think is enormous because we're everywhere.
Absolutely. And you've had former guests on this show, and I know they kind of look at space as a final frontier, but in a lot of ways, the convenience store is still America's final frontier. And I mean that in a great way, where the place where first responders stop off at before they go to work their long hours and great sacrifice there. Also where teachers may stop and students before school, truckers that have to do long hauls at times, hauling very important materials there. Mm-hmm. And we hear different anecdotes, different stories, right? And again, that culture, the way that you like to talk with my coworkers a lot about mm-hmm. this, is that, the way that we give impressions, how we leave people feeling once they walk out of the store is very important. Because that can set them up for success for the rest of their day, or can set them in a mood where, they may not want to see too many people. Or they may be a little bit cranky based on how we've presented ourselves in those little things here.
And you never know what a smile can do. You'll never know. But somebody comes in, and we actually have done some of these focus groups where we ask people who are now successful in other professions, but previously worked in convenience stores. And what was the skill you learned? It's like, well, I'm in sales now, and I knew how to change somebody's mood from negative or neutral to positive in 1 second. So, because I did it every day in lines, and it's just kindness, whatever it is. But there's great power there. And now I want to go back to, you had talked about coworkers, and also in this month's NACS magazine, you have your store managers featured, talking about just the cultural impact that she sees and feels every day in the store.
Yeah, I've known Josie for quite some time. I actually knew her ex a little bit better years ago. That's in the past, but during 2020, during the unrest there, she had helped us quite a bit and helped keep the community tight with bringing us food and resources we had, because she had definitely observed that while some businesses were boarded up and waiting for safer times to reopen and to be there, we were very much open and very much retweaked some of our offerings to be have the bare necessities for those that didn't have a vehicle, or those that were immobile, or those that were scared and holed up in their houses for the majority of the day. And the only place they would go to would be a convenience store, which was ours at the time.
Yeah. And we talk about milk, bread, eggs, the essentials, but it could be a cup of coffee. It could be humanity. And that's one of the things we've seen with people working from home. Sometimes it's just nice for non-pixelated humanity.
Absolutely. Sometimes you have to close up the laptop and just see human beings and have a cordial, friendly conversation, and just know that, no, the world, it may be a little bit crazy online and in some microcosms of the interwebs, but in real life, in convenience stores, there's tons of great people in the world. There's tons of great conversations to be had, and we can do so in a very tactful and a very friendly manner.
So also, just, you can't see this episode we're recording in my office. We're both around the mic, and I have a couple bookshelves full of basically C-store swag. 100-ounce mugs, hats, you name it. A pack of cigarettes from the 1986 NACS show. Go figure. I can talk to you about that sometime. But anyway, we have a lot of swag in our industry. And I think that's the other thing. When you were talking about the idea of the cultural impact, if you see somebody walking around wearing a QSR t-shirt, it's probably something they bought at Five Below that's like supposed to look vintage, or they're ironic. If you see a drugstore logo
closer to them, and it's just it's a caricature. It's like almost a mockery of the QSR brand.
Right.
Yeah.
Or if it's a drugstore, it's probably because the person's still wearing a uniform. But it's not, you don't see people walking into these kind of places and say, hey, do you have a t-shirt? Do you have a hat? Do you have a plushie or anything like that? And in our industry, I'm not talking about just like Buc-ee's. Lonnie, one store, you have hats, you have shirts, you have swag. And I'm right here on my bookshelf, we visited Stinker. Stinker has Stinker's logo is a skunk. They sell air fresheners with a skunk on it, and it says "Smell you later." Who wouldn't want a skunk air freshener? But that's going back to the connection that we are places people love coming to. There's a connection. And then they want to spend money and they want to celebrate it, and they want to tell their friends, like, look at this hat. Where'd you get that? Oh, I got it at 36 Lyn. Where'd you get this? And I think there's a real opportunity that you're seeing more retailers taking advantage of.
Absolutely. 36 Lyn, we've been honored where I've gotten through friends screenshots of dating profiles where people are donning the symbolic 36 Lyn hat.
I remember those.
I
wasn't looking, by the way.
Happily married. Jeff is happily married.
Yeah, they were forwarded. It wasn't. I wasn't there. No profile.
I've had people bring some of the other swag, like the lighters we've had on international trips, and they're in Croatia. They've been in parts of Norway, donning some of the gear as well. They've really taken them on, again, convenience stores are the final frontier. They're realizing that on their journey, they want to bring back some memories, but also carrying with them, symbols of the great memories they also want to come back to as well. And I think just like the homely feel of kind of going to your neighborhood diner, I think that's kind of what a lot of convenience stores have been. It's the extended family that you aren't related to is what make up much of the staff of convenience stores.
So you reminded me, well, first off, you mentioned the final frontier, and we had William Shatner on the podcast several years ago. He spoke at the NACS show, and we had him on. It was the longest podcast we've ever had. It was like
To date.
But we try to keep him 30 minutes or less. He was like an hour, and we cut out some time of it because he just kind of was talking. But interesting and very popular. But yeah, he would have kept on going if we didn't kind of close it down. So he was a talker. But not just the swag, not just the availability of things. And you had talked about people taking pictures of wearing your swag in different places. But you also reminded me when I visited your store this summer, this is a gas station / convenience store that gets Christmas cards. And you put these letters on the wall. You put these cards on the wall. People have a picture of their kid celebrating a big moment in life, and it's on the wall. They're giving it to a gas station because they care about that gas station. And that's pretty powerful. Where else do you see that? And there's power in that, and more power that we could possibly tap into.
Absolutely. It's an important thing to remind and to reflect with my coworkers on a very frequent basis. The other reasons why we work is not just for a paycheck. Right? There's a little bit of altruism with that, and there's a little bit of it really adds to the self-confidence of frontline employees to be acknowledged in different ways for what they do and going over and above their job. And having those visual symbols of that is something that, it's not lost on me. And I don't think it's lost on any of the executives that I've dealt with in my time being on the NACS committee and also on the NACS board. I have the great honor of serving with some really amazing people that understand the difficulties it is of working in any frontline job, whether it's in retail, whether it's volunteering at a school or at a local park. I mean, there's a lot that goes there. Sometimes retail can be very thankless, and sometimes people's families, they have that social pressure to say, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. What are you doing with yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, some people would rather that people, there's some people out there that have these very firm stereotypes in their mind about what this industry is, and they have no idea what it actually is. But yet they'll try to encourage or dissuade their family. They'll try to encourage their family to quit or dissuade them from working in our business because they just don't know how empowering and how dynamic and how comprehensive it can be. Mm-hmm. Also, the opportunity set, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, there's people whose sole job is to carry out marketing and social media and public relations for convenience stores. Other people are more focused on operations. And again, whatever it is that we do in retail and wherever it is in the country that we do, it's important work.
Yeah, sometimes it's selling things. Sometimes it's just being there.
Sometimes it's cleaning toilets. Sometimes it's being that person that lends a shoulder or the arms to hug someone after they're going through a difficult time. Mm-hmm.
So we visited you for your 20th anniversary celebration, and there's all kinds of fun activities there. I mentioned music, a lot of hugs, and just people that all had stories. And we're going to share some of them in the Ideas to Go segment that we developed there. And that'll be at the NACS show on October 15th in the general session. We also, while we were there, we visited a store. I'll let you tease this one. We visited a store just outside of Minneapolis. You know this store fairly well. You give me the elevator pitch of what we saw.
So Minnesota is a unique place. It's a very foodie town, both within Minneapolis proper and also the greater Twin Cities metropolitan area. Again, we had the opportunity. You guys have visited the sister store, but we went to a speakeasy that's nested inside a convenience store. And to enter into it, you have to go through a pop machine. And I kind of have to leave a little cliffhanger to your listeners here because it gives them a reason to come visit Minnesota and Twin Cities area. Seriously, look me up, call me. I'll take you out there. We'll have a good time. But inside of this speakeasy, it's a very well laid out, well designed restaurant, which has craft cocktails and NA beverages. Mm-hmm. But also inside the convenience store, it's very well curated with local beers and many local products that are on the shelves of this beautiful store, which is in some ways it's, the Midwest, a lot of people will say it's a flyover town, but definitely in this particular restaurant / convenience store, gas station, it's a real gem.
Yeah.
It's the highlight of the town. I know the mayor of Lakeville loves the spot, and a lot of the other politicos as well, and the locals too absolutely love it. It's been a godsend for them.
So yeah, and when we talk to them, and it's going to be an Ideas to Go segment also on October 15th at NACS Show, nacshow.com. Okay, my plug. But we were done filming, and it's like, I should have asked this camera on camera. I was just a little hesitant to, but I said, there's no entrance to this high-end speakeasy, high-end food, high-end craft cocktails. The only entrance is a hidden entrance in the convenience store. And I said, why didn't you have a separate entrance? And his answer was, what fun would that be? and I think that's really sums up our conversation today about the cultural impact of convenience stores.
Absolutely.
It's like they can be fun. They can be places of unusual events, music. They can be places to have connections. They can be places to buy swag to impress your friends. And if you don't have a 36 Lyn hat, I know somebody that can get you one. And if you are a one-store or two-store operator and say, well, how can a one-store operator do that? I know a guy too. So, it's just, how do you not say no when there's opportunities before you that say, let's have fun? Absolutely.
And that's one of the things I really appreciate about this industry, because a lot of my ideas are not original. Someone else has done it before. I've seen stores like Phil's 550 that's in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and what he's done with swag. And, it's been about 7 years since he's passed away. But again, it's the town general store. It's the town convenience store. It's a place you stop by before the beach, before you go snowshoeing. He really built a reputation as being one of the best, most quirky convenience stores in that market. And for those that have been up there, they know it all too well. But there's a ton of these stories out there. And I'm very excited for being involved in this industry and reading NACS publication and, some of the competitors as well, but really hearing these stories, because 36 Lyn's not unique. We're one of 154,000 convenience stores. There's many more stories out there to be found. And I look forward to seeing some more of those stories in Chicago during the NACS show, as well as driving along with you to kind of see more of them. And I hear rumors of a road trip 2.0 coming up here soon.
There very well could be. And also, just outside of Chicago, we visited a place a couple of years ago, Parent Petroleum. They have 93 octane, and they are out a bit, but they now have a tap room that's about 15 miles outside of Chicago, 15 minutes outside of Chicago. So also a place to check out. They've expanded from the gas station brewery, literally a gas station brewery, to a 400-seat tap room. So it's amazing what can be done, and it's still, all the beers are named after automotive-inspired names. So again, it's having fun. You could call it anything, but it's 93 Octane is the name of the brewery, and all the beers have octane or some sort of fun vehicle reference.
Absolutely. So yeah, Pride Stores does a great job. I mean, it's, again, what a time to be alive. This is a great industry, much opportunity. There's a lot of headwinds in some aspects, but boy, is it fun to be in this business.
Yes. So it is fun, and it is fun having you on the podcast, Lonnie. So thanks for joining us once again.
Honored to be here. Thank you.
And thank you all for listening to Convenience Matters.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.